I'm coming at you like you've never seen. Never in your life before have you seen the way in which I will come at you.
This is a clip of Republican Representative Thomas Massie of Kentucky recounting a phone call he had with then-President Donald Trump in 2020. As you can see from the giant DeSantis sign behind him as he's speaking, Massie is backing Florida Governor Ron DeSantis in the GOP presidential primary.
The day came, after they got everybody there, for me to raise the objection on the floor of the House to the unanimous consent. And my phone started ringing. And I looked at it. I'm on the floor of the House. We're not supposed to answer phone calls while we're on the floor. And I looked down, and the caller ID, the phone number was all zeros. And I said, oh, no, I know who that is. President Trump was trying to call me. He was not happy with me. So I did what any responsible congressman should do. I let it go to voicemail. And then I thought, well, maybe he'll leave a message and we can work it out that way. But then my phone rang 60 seconds later, and it was the same number, and I let that go to voicemail. Because I was watching the microphone, I had to raise an objection. If I left the floor of the House, they could just sneak this bill through with nobody being accountable. And then he called a third time, and I let that go to voicemail. And then somebody found me and said, you need to call the president back. He is not happy with you right now. And I said, well, I'm busy. But they yielded some time for debate, and I realized they weren't going to sneak the CARES Act through. By the way, do you all remember what was in the CARES Act? It funded the mail-in election of 2020 in all of the blue states. It had hundreds of millions of dollars for doing the elections by mail, which ultimately cost this president the election, I believe. And it had spending, we had to print money for all of the spending. It paid people not to work. That is crazy. I said, if you pay people not to work, not only are you going to have inflation, you're going to have shortages. And this will be with us for 2 years. But people were unhappy with me at the time. The polling was really good for this bill. So I stepped off the floor of the House, and I called the White House back, and they put me right through. They said, the president wants to talk to you. And he comes on the line, and he says, I'm coming at you like you've never seen. Never in your life before have you seen the way in which I will come at you. I'm more popular than you in Kentucky, and you know it. By the way, he was right. I had the polling. He was more popular than me. He said, I'm going to back your primary opponent, and you're going to lose. And I thought, well, I probably will lose. But what do I have to lose at this point? And then he proceeded to scream at me for about 3 minutes, and I was trying to explain to him what was in the bill, that it was going to be the end of our economy, that it would encourage the states to shut down their governments, but I was having a hard time getting a word in edgewise. And so he hung up on me ultimately, and I walked back to my seat, and before I could get to my seat in the House of Representatives, he tweeted that I should be thrown out of the GOP, and he tweeted that I was a third-rate grandstander. Now, my wife told me, be careful, nobody wants to be a first-rate grandstander. So when the press asked me what I had to say for myself, I told them, well, I'm at least second-rate. Come on. So anyways, I won my re-election 6 weeks later with 81% of the vote. And I wish the president would have listened to me, because I think if we hadn't passed the CARES Act, well, I know we wouldn't have this inflation, but I think he would have probably won the election if he hadn't shut down the biggest economy in the history of the world. And so I was feeling pretty lonely, okay? This bill polled at 80%. You want to know why? There were $1,200 checks in there. You know, the mice never figure out why the cheese is free. The $1,200 was the cheese in the trap to get us to vote for Nancy Pelosi's bill, which I didn't vote for it. It was a dream list of a liberal agenda, and I knew it was going to wreck our economy. But it was very unpopular, and I was kind of feeling a little bit lonely up there in Washington.